And would this be the smokestack?
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, number 8. Okay, so what we have is a computer that is taking into account the antenna height, the way the antennas are pointed, because they usually have 3 sets of antennas pointed in 3 different directions. Each one is called a sector. So they have basically 3 cell sites at one cell site, because they got 3 sets of antennas. And the band that's being used, it also, the databases have terrain information and often have information about whether it's buildings or trees or salt marsh. And with that, the computer predicts what the coverage is from each one of those sites. And so then you turn that on and you identify the coverage that the computer is predicting. Now, the next thing that you have to recognize is in the lower right corner, it labels this fuchsia color here as coverage, negative 92 dBm. And it's really weird to have negative numbers talking about signal strength, but what that refers to is a signal strength that would be received by a reference device, a reference antenna, at each location, each square, but perhaps the average signal level in this square is greater than negative 92. It could be, if you're near a cell site, it could be way greater than negative 92 and good enough for penetrating vehicles and penetrating buildings and getting good service in your house or in the bar, that sort of thing. Or if you're out at the fringes, it may just be at the borderline of negative 92 before it drops below the threshold and goes white, in which case it may not be particularly strong for penetrating houses or cars. Now, each carrier uses somewhat different thresholds, slightly different, and they have different technologies. You've heard of CDMA, which some wireless companies use, and GSM, which other wireless companies use, WiMAX, that Clearwire uses. So they come up with a coverage threshold. Now, this negative 92 dBm threshold is what the wireless companies were using when they were first building out their networks. And they weren't even paying attention to how much the signal loses going into the car. So a number of companies would consider negative 92 dBm outdoor service, but not necessarily reliable in vehicles or in buildings. Now the thing is, as I said, it's stronger than negative 92 near the cell site, so it's at the fringes that it gets to be around negative 92, and it may not be as effective as they'd like it to be. So what the companies have done in the 2000s is they started going from negative 92 to a higher signal strength as their threshold. And that's a negative number. A higher negative number is negative 84, negative 85. And that gave them some margin to, if that's the signal strength outside the car, it'll still be strong enough inside the car to use. Anybody tracking this? So anyway, what this means is that what I've been seeing from like 2000 to 2006 was coverage maps that instead of the threshold being pink to white at negative 92, it would be pink to white at a stronger signal level, therefore a smaller footprint. And now I'm seeing wireless companies coming in and saying, no, I need negative 80 or negative 76, an even stronger signal level, because I want to penetrate residences and buildings and have reliable service in the basement for the oil burner repair person and that sort of thing. And so for the same wireless site, the coverage footprint of an even stronger signal is even smaller. So white will be even closer. So what we have is a moving target, and it's been very frustrating for me and for communities to evaluate what's referred to in the law as whether or not there's a significant gap in service, because the companies keep changing their definition of a gap in service as they try to improve the quality of the service in an area. So to me, without knowing any more about this, my first reaction to this is unfortunately appears to be an antiquated map. That the levels that wireless companies are using now will have smaller coverage footprints from each one of these cell sites. And the white spaces will be bigger. And you're right, there are places here where there are white spaces where I'm sure it doesn't matter. In salt marshes. And so what should be looked at when whoever becomes the consultant on the RFP is what is it that wireless companies are looking at as their pressure points? Because we don't see much in the way of pressure points right now. You know, we do see a neighborhood down here near Elizabeth Street that is spotty. It's mostly white, but some people probably have service anyway because their houses face the right direction, or you know, that sort of thing. And then another factor that messes this all up is that cheap cell phones are typically not as reliable as expensive ones. So my son's cell phone drops calls at my house. My cell phone works fine, but it's right on the hairy edge. You know, I look at the number of bars and that sort of thing. So that's coverage. It's a moving target.